talk, I'm a great listener too. Family driving you crazy, man? And I know I ain't due. Let me know, I love kids, I can be a babysitter too. Yeah, boy, 'cause I'm nice like that. I even watch your car if you promise that you'll be right back. So relax and be cool, ain't no point in lying to you. I am a servant and my master sees all that I do. So tell me what you need, dude. $1? Here, take 2. I chew, may a Lord bless you, guide you, and make things easy for you. This respect thing is just what I do, and it's past tolerating, it's on the path of understanding and appreciating you. So tell me what you're gonna do when the love comes for you. Insult my heritage? We're both from Adam and Eve, fool. Oh snap, how you like that? You gave me an extra change and I gave it right back. I let people pass when they want to switch lanes, 'cause if it was me, I hope they do the same. You butchered my name, but that's okay. It happens all the time, I won't correct it anyways. And it may sound strange, but I'm a beat at change. Improve every day to prove that rudeness is lame. I believe in modesty and try to lower my gaze. And if everything is from above, then everything is the same. I ain't impressed by money, cars, clothes, or fame. I am a Muslim, so the trinkets of this world don't mean a thing. I was taught that peace is not the absence of war, but peace is a feeling that can only come from remembering your Lord. So for the sake of peace, there's no point in hating me anymore. It's a big place. We can all live together in this world. I invite you all to join me in this jihad of love and see firsthand why fundamentalism still begins with fun. And if you don't agree, I won't even judge. I just kill you all with love. Salu ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad. So as I mentioned before, this was actually written by Buna Muhammad, and I encourage you all to check out his work on YouTube. He has various topics ranging from, he has spoken word pieces on Imam Ali, Bibi Fatima, hijab, love, like the one I just recited for you. And I actually chose this poem because the underlying message is to love all and to be kind to all. And amongst the many lessons to be learned from the events of Karbala, the one story that sticks with me is that of Hazrat Hur. And when he approached the Imam could have easily said that, because of you, my family is in this situation. But instead, he invited him in, he forgave him, he blessed him, and he allowed him to join his camp. And I always think to myself, would I be able to treat my enemy like that? Would I be able to be so kind to somebody who puts my family in danger? I don't know. So I continue to try to remind myself of how the Imam and his family treated others, and inshallah, with their help and with their examples, we can truly learn what it's like to spread kindness and spread unconditional love. Salu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, I just have a few announcements before the speech tonight. First of all, there is a majlis at the cemetery in Anaheim, that's Melrose Abbey in Anaheim, this Sunday at 10:30 a.m., and all are requested to please attend. Also, the annual Alzheimer's Walk is November 15th this year, and I believe, it's in the Angel Stadium, right? So the Alzheimer's Walk is November 15th at the Angel Stadium. You can actually register online. And we've actually been attending the walk for the past 15 years or so. And we have a pretty group now that goes every year. So I encourage all of you to please join us this year, November 15th. For those of you who don't get our emails, please contact an EC member. And for those of you who are interested in joining our email list, you can actually go on our website, that's lajamaat.org, and sign up to our email list. The day of Ashura is November 3rd, that's Monday, November 3rd, and the program will start at 9:30 a.m. with Amal, and it will end at 6:30 p.m. that night. The last majlis with our guest speaker, Shaykh Arif, is Tuesday, November 4th, and Tuesday, November 4th, the program will start at 7:30 p.m. with dinner. So not 8:30 as usual, but 7:30 with dinner. And there is a julus this Sunday in downtown LA, and that will begin at 11:30 and will go until 3 p.m. And lastly, like always, there will be a Q&A session tonight after the speech. With that, will you please help me in welcoming our guest speaker, Shaykh Arif, to the member. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين، ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We spoke of symbolism in the framework of the overall theory that we have been talking about, the vertical trend towards self-realization and spiritual morality, or becoming godlike and acquisition of godliness, and that the ahkam facilitate that, and ahkam further have a form and essence equation within themselves. But in that we spoke of the human need towards symbolism, and how symbolism cannot be an end within itself, but a means towards actualization and self-realization. And in that we spoke as to how certain cultures are bringing about stagnation and regression. Now, I did not mean to say that symbolism is bad. No, it's good. It has its place in the human society. Human individual needs symbolism, and it's a part and parcel of a healthy life. What we need to understand is that fine balance between a state of liberation and symbolism. We cannot be so overly symbolic that that process of liberation, attainment of God, reaching out to the fullness of ourselves is barred. When symbolism adds to it, assists the process, it's performing its function. When it stifles, that is when it is becoming counterproductive. This is what we were trying to establish yesterday. It is good to have symbolism. Children learn through drawing, through imagery. But as we grow in age, we need to think abstract. Do we not see the difference in our schooling? In the nursery, we play with colors, objects, sand, and clay. At universities, we learn to think in an abstract manner, don't we? Even when we depict our imagination through art, it's highly abstract idea that is being conveyed through it. That is the human progressive trend from a state of weakness into a state of strength. So what we were trying to say was that when we compound cultures upon cultures upon cultures, and we do not know how to get out of them, that is the time when we need to go back to basics. That the Prophet of Islam, how did he see it? Now, incidentally, we have a hadith, and we want to follow up from yesterday, again the main theme, but just this point because it fits in well. We have a hadith that state, do not draw anything, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you to breathe soul into it on the day of Qiyamah. Yes, we have this hadith. And then of course we have all this hadith of karaha, of praying in a place where there is a picture, for example. Or it is haram to draw pictures and it's haram to buy and sell. But if it's bought, then it's makruh to keep it inside the house. And it is disliked to put it in a room where we are praying. Now, if we look at the context of those ahadith, we will find that the Meccans were steeped in idolatry, and therefore that particular trend of creating idols out of everything had to be purged from the community, and hence such forceful ahadith. But the Quran is silent about it. It does not have explicit texts talking about it. And that's why we were saying the Quran is ambiguous, allowing for the human growth. The human being will facilitate his own, or human being, I've been told, I've been using his and not hers predominantly. So if I say her, you won't like it, right? So we'll stick to his, and our sisters can forgive us on this instance. For the human being to accommodate his or their growth, yes, their growth adequately, and they can modify and monitor and check and revise. Now, if that is understood, we go back to our theme. We have been talking about the vertical axis of self-realization, the horizontal axis of ahkam. And we've stated within the ahkam there is a form and essence as well. If the essence is conflicted, the form will give way, but the essence will be given priority. The essence will never go. The form will change hands to accommodate the essence. So for example, a very simple example that the Quran gives, that when you are fleeing from your enemy, pray on horseback. The essence is ascertained. The form has changed. A new form will accommodate the same essence. And then when you're in safety, the Quran says, then pray as I have taught you. Then face the Qibla, do your ruku, do your sujood. Then the normal form comes back to accommodate the essence. Now still on this theme of form and essence, and a few more distinctions before we go into the masaib of this great personality of this night. Form and essence, back to that particular point, and the ambiguities of the Quran. You see, the Quran was in itself revealed in a given context. The people already had a language that they were using. The Prophet did not bring about a new language. He used a language that was already there. When we talk about language, by the way, we are not only talking about the words that convey meanings, but we're talking about sentiments, we're talking about morality, we're talking about aesthetics, we're talking about a host of things, human culture, human society. So the language pre-existed him. He used the same language. That language is a context. That language is a means of conveying the truth of God, and it's a means of restricting it, because there are many things God might want to convey that the language does not have the capacity to convey. Yes? 2, what the people are accustomed to, the people's cultures, the people's environments, the people's foods. So you don't find in the Quran examples about apples and pears, do you? Yes? By the way, I always make this very light-hearted comment that in an Imami Shia community you can get away with saying anything about the Quran because nobody reads the Quran anyway. But apples are not mentioned inside the Quran, right? Neither are kangaroos, because the Arabs would have said, well, what are you going on about? There aren't any kangaroos here. What are apples? What are kangaroos? So again, the Quran is limited by the cultures and the context of the people. So Quran, even though it's conveying the essence in the most ambiguous way, even then it is curtailed by the context. Now the beauty of the Quran is that it is highly pragmatic. It is applicable immediately. How can it be pragmatic, at the same time ambiguous, at the same time allowing for that evolutionary trend? By being minimalistic and ambiguous and being practical all at once, and that's the miracle of the Quran. It has to fit any given situation, in accordance with that situation, carry the higher truths with it, and have the dynamism to allow the higher truth to be attained with the flowing of the society. And that is the marvelous thing about the Quran. Can you see that? Immediately, it has to be applicable to the people to whom it's coming. One. It knows also that this context is a momentary context. So it should have the higher truths reflected within it, so that the higher truths are always there. And it has to have a mechanism for the achievement of the higher truths, and that is the ambiguity of the Quran. Now, let us give an example. Cutting off of the hands. The Quran says the male thief, the female thief, cut off their hands. It is highly pragmatic, practical in that society. But that society does not have anything else but the chopping off of hands. They don't have any other means. They don't have necessarily the sophisticated rehab centers that we have here today. It doesn't have the sort of prisons that we have. So it has to be mindful of the immediate context of the people, and that it applies to the people immediately, and it is productive. So people say, yes, this makes sense. It's value-based law. The law gives value because it offers protection of society and protection of people and reformation of society immediately. And at the same time, the means are available for the chopping of the hands. So here, what do we see? It's practical. The essence is there, that it is offering protection of society, reformation of society as well. And at the same time, the means are there, and it allows us to think into it once again. So here, what I'm trying to say before we go further is that the Quran, even though it is limited by its context, it leaves that window open for the higher truth, and it has those inbuilt mechanisms for us to revise. Now that is one example. I'm not going to go further into that example. Don't want to distract from the central thing that we're trying to talk about today. But look at the whole issue of zakat. Yes? The Quran does not talk about the entities upon which zakat is to be given. Can you see that? The Quran says, Aqimus salah wa atuz zakah. Establish prayer and give the zakat. Ali ibn Abi Talib's instruction put the spiritual twist onto the zakat. I shouldn't say spiritual twist, but steep it within spirituality, as we were talking about 2-3 days ago, that the ahkam are shrouded in spirituality. But the Quran does not talk about any extensions of zakat. The Prophet mentions the extensions, the camel, the cattle, the goat, the crop, gold coins, silver coins. Why has the Quran left it ambiguous? This thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that the zakat is something that has a function within the human society and the human community. And it will grow and it will revisit it and set new stipulations. What was the purpose of zakat? It wasn't only a spiritual act, it had a pragmatic value. We need to sustain a healthy community. We need roads. We need schools. We need hospitals. We need everything else, other institutions, don't we? Zakat caters for that. So zakat is nothing more, nothing less than a welfare tax. The Prophet had to run his state. How else would he run it? Where would he get the money from? The people had to contribute money in order for him to create a functioning society. Can you see that? The Quran is deliberately ambiguous about it, so that the human mind, in accordance with the need of the society from era to era, can fluctuate the whole law of zakat. So it's not the case that because we don't own camels or we don't transact in gold coins that there is no zakat. And then the issue of khums. If we read the deliberations of Imam Khomeini and Shaykh Ayatollah Marhum Muntazari, we find that they both say that actually it's most akin to a state tax as opposed to zakat, the welfare tax. Zakat is sort of a welfare tax, khums is a sort of a state tax. And they make it very clear, فَخُمُسُهُ لِلَّهِ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِذَوِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ إِنَّمَا غَنِمْتُمْ. And this verse has been repeated once again when it comes to the Anfal. Khums also has a historical precedent. Within the pagan Arabs, the chief used to take 1/4 of every earning of his tribes. The Quran came and lessened it to 1/5 and brought about 6 extensions for it. So here we had 2 types of taxes. We had the zakat and we had the khums. Now, if we were running an Islamic community, Islamic society, yes, without anything else, take away all human experience, all human evolution, our community is expanding. We are evolving. We are growing. There is a need now for international relations, international trade, so on and so forth. And if the zakat is not sufficient on camels and goats and cattle and crop and gold and silver coin, what would the state do? It would impose further extensions of zakat, wouldn't it? It will increase the levy of zakat, wouldn't it? And that is directly in line with the Quran, because the Quran is ambiguous about it. The Quran does not stipulate any particular extension for zakat. That would be the natural thing that the human being would do. Does that make sense? And on top of that, when people don't have camels anymore or crop anymore, does that mean they don't give zakat at all? How is the state supposed to function? How are the poor supposed to be fed? How are small businesses supposed to be boosted? How are people supposed to be educated? How are roads supposed to be built? It was a pragmatic way of running a state. Now, a further distinction comes here that the Prophet has made. The Prophet said in Ghadir al-Khum, in his khutbah, he stated that I leave with you 2 weighty things, the Quran and my Ahlul Bayt. The Quran is the heavy weight, and the Ahlul Bayt is the lighter weight. Now, it does not mean in terms of spirituality. In terms of spirituality, the Quran is just paper and ink. It's nothing. The Ahlul Bayt are the masters and the lords of spirituality. Nothing can touch them. Yes? But what the Prophet meant was something else altogether. The Prophet was talking about the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt in terms of contextualization and in terms of them giving the rulings, the particular forms for evolution and growth. You see, the Quran is less contextual, even though it is context-based. But it is less contextual than the Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt are firmly gripped by a context, like the Prophet was. The Prophet was gripped by his own personal, immediate context. Can you not see that? The Quranic verses that come, we can see the influence of the prophetic context. They come for his wives. The Prophet is the context for those verses which are revealed regarding his wives. The Prophet is a context in the sense that many verses are revealed in response to his own sentiment, in response to his own questions, in response to his own internal situations. Medina was a context. Badr was a context. Uhud was a context. These were all contexts. But then you had the Prophet's context, which is further limited, and the Imam's context, which were further limited. What do we mean by this? Let's give examples. Imam Ali Salamullah alayhi, he imposed a greater levy on zakat. He imposed zakat on horses until the need was met with. And once the need was removed, he removed zakat from horses. So why did he add another extension of zakat? Because his context demanded it. There was a need to cater at that time of battle for the community, so he imposed zakat on horse. Similarly, Imam Baqir Salamullah alayhi, as we read the example yesterday, he imposed zakat on gold, khums on gold. And people opposed, the people disputed with him, and he said, look, I need the money to cater for the condition and for the needs of the community. So for 1 year I'm imposing it. What does this mean? What this means is that the Quran, even though it's in a context, but it's less contextualized. It's more universal. But the Ahlul Bayt are in a very fixed context. They are all acting in terms of the essence and trying to form the essence. But the Ahlul Bayt are more restricted in their context. Now, if we've understood that, and I want to make one more distinction in just a little while. If we've understood that, then with the law of khums that comes, yes? Now I'm asking you in terms of back to basics, in terms of that which intuitively does not make sense, yes? I'll ask you now, if you were to be asked about the law of zakat and of khums, that zakat is on fixed entities and khums is to be given like this and distributed like that, what will you say? You would say, well, it doesn't make sense. What is the purpose of zakat? What is the purpose of khums? What function is it supposed to play? What role is it supposed to play? Yes? Because in a functioning society, if these are taxation systems, then in that case they're allowing for the needs of the community and the growth of the community. They are not blind laws. They have to be immediate values that are yielded from them. What values are being yielded from them? But if you were to be told that zakat is a taxation that is always in flux, your minds would make sense of it. If you were to be told that khums is a particular type of taxation for a particular function, your minds would make sense of it. So now, let us look at some hadith literature and trying to point at this heavy weight and this lesser weight. That the lesser weight is more contextual, the heavier weight is less contextual, more essence directed. And the lesser weight is more form directed. Yes, if that's making sense, I don't need to explain it again. Now, let us look at certain examples. When it comes to the imams and the imams' statements, the imam said, pay khums in your locality only. The imam said, give me khums, and when you give me khums, if one of the extensions is not there, then I will do with it as and how I want. The Quran is talking about 6 extensions. Lillah, wa li rasulihi, wa li dhabil qurba, wal yatama, wal masakin, wa ibn as-sabil. 6 extensions. So the Imam said, look, Allah is not here. The Prophet used to take Allah's share. The Prophet is not here. The dhabil qurba, which is us, the Imams, the righteous Imams from the Ahlul Bayt, who will take the first 3 shares. As for the next 3 shares, you distribute it. If you don't find any extension, it comes back to me, and it's my decision as to what I do with it as the head of the state, head of the state. Now, give it in your own locality. Don't send it away. What was the function of this khums and this zakat before we go any further within the ambiguity of the verse? It was to bring about a functioning community whose needs are met with through a proper taxation system which was fluctuating all the time. Yes? So in America, you are paying taxes 40 to 50%. In return, the community gets facilities, the fire services, the hospital, the schools, the roads, so on and so forth. This is then the tax paying all these facilities back to the people. And therefore, in the modern society, there is no need for a person in this country, and I'm saying this, don't listen to half things that I'm saying, listen to the full things that I'm going to say, yes? There is no need to pay khums or zakat because the function is already there. Yes? I don't understand why in Muslim countries the Muslim leadership imposes taxes and then imposes khums and zakat on top. There's no need for it. If the taxes are sufficient to run the country and to see its needs, there is no need for khums or zakat. Yes? There is no need for it because the function is being fulfilled through that taxation system. And that taxation system is, in other words, khums and zakat anyway. Now, because we don't have a proper system, we are obliged towards other brothers and sisters of ours in the world that require maintenance, education, food, and shelter. So we will, as an obligation upon us, give. But that percentage that is to be given is to be decided by us. We need proper institutions, international institutions, that can say what is the percentage that needs to be given in order for the community to cater for its own needs. Now, if we've understood that, so if even in America we don't need to give it, but elsewhere we do need to give it, but the percentage is in a state of flux, and there should be full accountability, because if you were to be told in the equation of back to basic that give me the money and there's no accountability, what would you say? You would say this doesn't make sense. Yes? And especially, I mean, think about it. if something does not make sense and it came to us for the first time, if a religion were to come to me and say, well, give me money and I don't give you any account of where it's going, I would say, no, look, this religion doesn't make sense to me. It has to ascertain and it has to justify itself that whatever it's doing is valid, not invalid. Don't leave any suspicion and doubt in my mind. Now, going back to the verse of khums, I want to build on this just a little bit. Allah does not specify who the recipient of khums is beyond the dhawil qurba. Allah merely says, وَخُمُسُهُ لِلَّهِ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِذَوِي الْقُرْبَى. We know who the dhawil qurba. Yes? These are the family of the Prophet and the Imams particularly. Or only the Imams. But what about the yatama, masakin, wabn sabil, the orphans, the poor people, and the wayfarer? Here, we have ambiguity within the Quran. The fixing of a sayyid is a contextual part. It is not the absolute extension. Can you see that? So this is the theory, that when the Imam said that these extensions are the extensions which are known as the children of Abdul Muttalib, this is a contextual part. Now why? Because it was said that zakat is a means of purification. When you purify something, what does it have? What happens? Whatever you take out, what is it known as? It's known as dirt. When I say to you, purify this. So when you purify that thing, what have you removed from it? Dirt. Does that make sense? So that's why you find this in the literature, that zakat is the dirt of people. Zakat is the dirt of people. And because it's a dirt of people, it cannot go to a sayyid. Tell me, would this sort of a reasoning work in this sort of a society? That you eat each other's dirts, but there is one particular brand of people to whom this dirt cannot go. Can religion ever create these sort of ranks? This is what I'm trying to say. Certain things do not make sense. We need to understand them afresh. Yes? The Sayyids are people we respect utmost. There's the blood of Rasulullah in there. But that's one thing. Social distinctions and economic distinctions is another thing altogether. That's not how a religion functions. The Quran has universal, إِنَّمَا أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The most noble of you with Allah is the most pious among you. Finish. That is the universal of Quran. A person purest in the sight of God can be black, white, slave, man, woman, Sayyid, non-Sayyid, whoever there is. In fact, Allah is saying maybe a Christian, Muslim or Jew, because in that verse, He does not say, "O Muslim, the best of you." He says, "O mankind, the best among you." Yes? So this extension that is known as the Sayyid for this, it is based on a particular context. Now, if taking whatever out of zakat is known as dirt, yes, according to the literature, then we also have a further law that a Sayyid can eat Sayyid's zakat. So a Sayyid can eat Sayyid's dirt, but a Sayyid cannot eat the dirt of somebody else. And it's further complex and complicated. And you see, well, it doesn't make sense altogether. And the back to basics scenario will tell us that no, there is something that belongs to a particular part in history. Now, in the welfare system of America or UK, let's say I'm acquainted with that, nobody sleeps at night without shelter or with a hungry stomach. Everybody consumes from everybody else's tax. Yes? The income tax that we give, it goes to a Sayyid, non-Sayyid, white, black, man, woman, young, old. It goes to everybody equally. There is no notion of this dirt and dust and everything like that, or filth of people. Everybody eats it equally, and we say, well, yeah, there's no problem there. So if khums and zakat were to be treated in this way, we will see that actually it makes far more sense. And when the Imam says that this belongs to the Sayyid, there was a particular context, historical context for it, and this is what we've been trying to say, that if something does not make sense, it may have a historical context which is no longer available. So that response belongs to history. It might not be applicable today. Now, we have further complications in the Sayyid, non-Sayyid thing that we want to explain just briefly, which will make more sense. That in the subcontinent we have all this idea that a Sayyid woman cannot marry a non-Sayyid man. When I was in Qom studying at the house of Murtaza Hussain, my teacher, and who's this who's now a grand marja, Sayyid Kazim Hayri, was there at his house for food, and we were eating together. And he turns to Maulana, who was also a mujtahid now, Murtaza Hussain, and he said, what sort of people are you in Pakistan? He said, what do you mean? He said, well, I've got a letter from Pakistan, somebody saying, can a Sayyid girl marry a non-Sayyid man? He said, what nonsense is this? Why do you even ask such questions? So then Maulana Murtaza Hussain explained to him, he said, no, it's not nonsense for them. For them, it's something very big. Now, historically, there's a hadith in which the Imam says, Abna'ana li banatina wa banatina li abna'ana, that our sons are for our daughters and our daughters are for our sons, restricting the marriage of Sayyid to Sayyid. The context for that was that the Bani Abbas wanted to, by force, marry the daughters, and he was protecting them. It was a historical context, and it was a historical response. There was no such thing as supremacy and inferiority that they were trying to convey. Otherwise, who did Lady Zainab marry? She did not, they say that the best of Sayyids are those that come from the lineage of Imam Ali and Lady Zahra. Well, who did Bibi Zainab marry? She married, yes, a Sayyid from the sense of Abdul Muttalib, yes. But who did Imam Zainul Abidin marry? Who did the other women of the Imam's household marry? You see, when we look into it, we say, well, no, these things are historical. They belong in history at some point. They are not hard and fast rules. Khums and zakat have been grossly misunderstood. The division of it, the extensions of it, and how they function. They were there for a very real state, a state that had to function, and there were two types of taxations that were given. Now, I want to make a further distinction here in this whole theory of public practice, private practice, based on the existential feature of universal and particular cultures. Do you remember we spoke of universal cultures and particular cultures? Thus Islam addresses both of them. It allows for particularity and it creates universality as well. And it allows them to intertwine and to blend into each other. In this mosque, we have a particular culture, the way of sitting, the program, the matam, the azadari, so on and so forth. That's a very particular culture. But if we went into an intra-faith context, it would acquire a very different culture. If we went into a multi-faith context, it will acquire a very different culture. If we went to Makkah, it acquires the universal Ummah culture. Can you see that? Where you are not a Shia, you're not a Sunni, you're not a Wahhabi, you're not a Brelwi, you're not a Deobandi, you're not a Bora, you're not an Ismaili. We are all wearing two garments. We are not men, we are not women, we are not young, we are not old, rich, poor. We are none of these things. All distinctions fade away in a very universal culture. Now, these are existential features. In line with these existential features, we come to another property, which I describe as public practice and private practice. Now, keeping in mind that yardstick that we were talking about, the yardstick of if we have to hide from something, if we can't explain it away, if it is frowned upon, then that is something that needs to be critically checked. Because a religion cannot have any facet in that it has to hide away or frown upon or feel embarrassed about. Because religion is supposed to be offered to mankind. And mankind can only adhere to religion if everything in there is justifiable. Yes? If everything in there is kosher, or should I say halal? Salawat. So now, in line with that, we have this public practice and private practice. What does that mean? It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how human existence is. We all have our individualistic ways that are not harming anybody, and neither are they harming our growth process. So He allows them. But He also expects us to be mature enough, in line with the instructions of the Quran, which are very basic and minimalistic, to be able to go beyond those cultures and embrace the greater human body and not allow our restricted expressions to divide us. Does that make sense? He allows us our restricted expressions, provided that when we are in a greater capacity, these restricted expressions do not sever human unity. They do not bring about disunity. There has to be that maturity. Now, what do I mean by that? You see, the Sufis go around, don't they? the wailing, the whirling dervishes. And other Sufis, I've been to many of these gatherings, they go into wajd and ecstasy, and they pronounce the name of Allah. They're not harming anybody. It's their private practice. It's fine. It's not infringing with anything. When they are in the ummah capacity, they don't uphold those practices as point of division. They don't define themselves by it. Yes? Similarly, the Imami have matam. They're not harming anybody. It's fine. It's a perfectly valid expression. It's a beautiful expression. Carry on doing it. But they will not define themselves by it. They have to define themselves by what? By the universal of ummah. By the basic requirements of Islam. La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Salah, Siyam, Zakat, Hajj, finish, end of it. That is their definition. Beyond that is their private cult, individualistic culture and their private practice. So now, if that is understood, then we can build on the next point. You know, I swear, whenever I'm in trouble, inadvertently, Ya Ali Madad pops out and it works. Now I remember, I went to a Wahhabi shop and I love my Wahhabi brothers, and I wanted to say, Ya Rabbi, and the more I was trying to say Ya Rabbi, Ya Ali was coming out, and I was getting into trouble. Now that's all well and fine. It's my private practice. But, and I know what it means, and it's not shirk, and I make that theological connection properly. Fine, fine. But in my public capacity, I can't go around saying Ya Ali Madad, Ya Ali Madad, Ya Ali Madad, because it's not understood. Yes? Which Imam has said Ya Ali Madad? Which? Tell me. Do you find anywhere in history that any Imam said Ya Ali Madad? I mean, look at it. If you look at Dua Kumail, Dua Sabah, Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq, Dua Tawbah, the duas of Sahih Sajadiyah, where do you get Ya Ali anywhere? Where do you get Ya Muhammad anywhere? Where do you get any of these things anywhere there? Do you get them? In the phenomenal Dua Arafah, yes, of the third Imam, where do you get any of these sentiments that we carry forward? Where do you get them? Nowhere to be found. And I want to discuss spirituality further in the whole lecture tomorrow. But what I'm trying to say here is that there is a lot that belongs to a private culture, and it's supposed to be private practice. It cannot be a definition of the sect. It's a mere private expression. Now, if I were to say this, and I need open hearts and open minds, truly open hearts and open minds, which I know, historically, I can prove it myself. The whole thing of Aliyun Waliyullah in the Adhan, yes? Sayyid al-Khu'i quotes a hadith from Imam Sadiq, إِذَا شَهِدَ أَحَدٌ مِنْكُمْ بِالشَّهَادَتَيْنِ فَلْيَشْهَدْ بِالشَّهَادَةِ Ali ibn Abi Talib. It's a Sahih hadith in Al-Kafi. What that means is that whenever we say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, we should say Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliyullah. Now, according to that hadith, even in Tashahud you can say it. Yes, in the Adhan you can say it, in the Iqamah you can say it. But I want to ask one question. When did Imam Ali say it? Imam Hassan say it? Imam Hussein say it? Imam Zainul Abidin? Imam Muhammad Baqir? Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq? Surely, if that was a public practice, then they would have done so, wouldn't they? Which of the Imams have done that? Then why should the group be so adamant that when they are in a greater culture, that they adamantly say Aliyun Waliyullah? Why can't they just keep it in their private practice? And in their private practice, when questioned, not hide away, not shy away, to justify and say, this is our private practice based on this. The equation of bid'ah does not touch it. The hadith of Imam Sadiq ordains it, but this is private practice, not public practice. Is that coming through? The whole point? As opposed to making Ali ibn Abi Talib a point of division, when his son said that he is the father of the ummah, what did the Prophet say, by the way? Ana wa Ali abawa hadil ummah. Me and Ali are the two fathers of this ummah. Ali belongs at the helm of the ummah. What ummah? Not the Sunni Shia ummah, the human ummah, the ummah that the Prophet created in Medina, which comprised of Muslims, Jews, Christians, Sabians and the pagans. He said, I and Ali are the fathers of the ummah. That was the broad ummah that the Prophet created on humanitarian basis. That is where Ali ibn Abi Talib belongs. He does not belong in this pettiness that we have put him in. Yes? So now, in the public practice, there is no need to be adamant and make Ali ibn Abi Talib this super giant. Do you know, honestly, There are not many men that can make me tremble and shake in awe. When I see Muhammad Rasulullah and Ali ibn Abi Talib, I tremble in awe as to how can human beings be like this. This is how grand these people are. When you look at Imam Sadiq, my God, Aristotle appears like a baby in front of him. A person who talks about cosmology in the way Imam Sadiq talks about it. He said these things are not stagnant, they are moving. He talks about atoms. He speaks about the beginning of the universe, that it comes from a single particle. And he talks about the reversion of the whole universe in a single particle. He talks about the motion of the sun. He talks about the explosion of galaxies and creation of new galaxies. Can you imagine? Ibn Arabi, the great saint, the master of human learning, he gets his cosmology totally up the creek and wrong. And he comes so many hundred years after Imam Sadiq. Where did this man get this knowledge from? When you look at their spirituality, when you look at the knowledge base, you are baffled. These are the super giants. But which one of them did any of these things that we are doing in their name today? Which one of them? Tell me. None of them. So there is a distinction between private practice and public practice. You see, if this group were to be mindful of universal cultures and public practice, they would be once again able to share the richness of the learning of the family of the Prophet and their spirituality with the wider body. And as the eighth Imam says, to Abba Salt, by Allah, the best amongst you are those who learn our knowledge. For indeed, if the people knew who we were, nobody would not follow us. They would all adhere to us. Today, Hindu, Muslims, Christians, they all say Hussein is ours, don't they? Ali ibn Abi Talib needs to be put on that pedestal where everybody says this man is the father of humankind. After the Prophet, his brother, this is the second father. And his sons are the exemplaries and the torchbearers of human spirit. They don't belong the way we have placed them. We want to talk more about this tomorrow. Today, we don't have time. Salawat. In honor of Hazrat Abbas, I'm going to do a little bit of an extended Masaib of Hazrat Abbas. Just talk about Hazrat Abbas if that is okay. Salawat. About Abbas, it is said, the hadith of 7th Imam, that Imam Hussein went for his final battle. And there was an inspiration on the heart of Imam Hussein. Oh Hussein, look towards the heavens. And he looks towards the heavens and he sees them filled with angels. The inspiration said, Oh Hussein, take aid of these angels, destroy your enemies. Spare your life and you will still have the reward that I have prepared for you at your martyrdom. Tears rolled from his eyes. And he said, Oh Allah, they have killed my Abbas. That was Abbas for Hussein. We are told about Abbas that when he ascended his steed, his feet would touch the ground. The lofty stature of Abbas. In the hadith of Imam Sadiq, in which he says, Kal Jabal al-Azim. He was like a lofty mountain. Wa qalbuhu ka tawdil jasim. His heart was like a momentous wave. لَأَنَّهُ كَانَ فَارِسًا هُمَّامًا. Because he was a gallant swordsman. وَبَطْلًا ضَرْغَامًا. And a fearless warrior. وَكَانَ جَسُورًا. He was audacious. عَلَى الطَّعْنِ وَالضَّرْبِ. Amidst spears and swords. فِي مَيْدَانِ الْكُفَّارِ وَالْحَرْبِ. In the battlefield amongst the kuffar and the non-believers. This Abbas, when Bahrul Ulum took a builder to his grave, Sayyid Bahrul Ulum, because the grave of Abbas had become waterlogged and damaged, the builder narrates that I saw the grave of Abbas and shocked, I turned to Bahrul Ulum. I said, Oh Sayyid, if I may be permitted, can I ask something? He said, indeed. He said, don't you describe that Abbas' stature was so lofty that when he sat on the back of his steed, his feet would touch the ground? He said, indeed, Abbas was like that. He said, then why is his grave so small? Sayyid Bahrul Ulum struck his head against the grave of Abbas and said, فَقَطَعُوهُ إِرْبًا إِرْبًا. They cut him into little pieces. When Abbas's head was struck, he placed his head upon the mane of the horse. He did not fall, but they surrounded him and began to hack at him. Abbas, it is said about Abbas, كان عمنا العباس نافض البصيرة صلب الإيمان, that our Abbas, our uncle Abbas, had penetrative insight and was firm in faith. Abbas was a man who was learned, but mostly known for the quality of his bravery. He had many names. Amongst his names are Abul Fadl, because he was the father of Fadl. Abul Qirba, the father of the water skin, because he went to retrieve water. Abdul Salih, the righteous servant. Al-Muwasi, the consoler. Al-Fadi, the person who sacrifices himself. Al-Hami, the helper. Al-Waqi, the protector. As-Sa'i, the one who strives. Qamar Bani Hashim, the radiant moon of the Hashimis. Hamilul Liwa, the bearer of the standard. Babul Hawaij, the door for the granting of supplication. Saqqa, the one who quenches the thirsts. At the death of Lady Fatima, Ali turned to one of his companions and he said, "Find me a woman that will bear me, a brave soldier." Banin was chosen. It is said, when Abbas took birth, Ali carried him and kissed his arms and wept. They said, "O Master, why do you weep?" He said, "By Allah, he will have them cut in the love of his brother Hussein." When the news reached Medina, when Bashir came to Medina, and he said, "Ya Ahla Yathrab, O people of Medina, la muqama lakum biha. You have no place in Medina henceforth. Hussein has been killed." An old lady appeared. She said, "Silent, O man. You cannot be speaking the truth." He said, "Dear maid of God, I speak the truth." She said, "Where was my Abbas? Your Abbas was killed. How can anybody overpower my Abbas?" He was deceived, and his arms were cut from his body, and then an iron mace was struck upon his head, and that is how your Abbas was killed. She said, "If his arms were cut, then how did he arrive upon the plains of Karbala?" I will say, Banin, as Zainab might have arrived on the 11th of Muharram. Abbas is a standard bearer. There's a whole history of standard bearers. Ali ibn Abi Talib bore the standard in Badr. Then, after the killing of many Sahabas in Uhud, 25 years after, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya bore the standard at Siffin and Nahrawan. At Siffin, we find this scene that Ali ibn Abi Talib tells his companions, "Look at the battle of my Hassan and my Hussein." They look at the battle and they turn to Ali. They say, "Oh Ali, if it is not audacious, may we say something?" He said, "Say." He said, "Your Hassan fights well, but your Hussein does not fight. There is somebody who follows him like a shadow and kills every opponent of Hussein before they arrive at Hussein." He said, "That is my Abbas." He said, "Why do you send Abbas and Muhammad ibn Hanafiya and keep back Hassan and Hussein?" He said, "Hassan and Hussein are the children of the Prophet. Abbas and Muhammad ibn Hanafiya are my children. Hassan and Hussein are my eyes. Abbas and Muhammad ibn Hanafiya are my hands. It is the right of the eyes that the hands should protect them." This Abbas is 13 years of age in Siffin. Ali ibn Abi Talib was the finest swordsman the Arabs had ever seen. He would go in single combat, effortlessly cut his opponent. Abu Ash'as came, a renowned warrior amongst the Shamis, the Syrians, and called out for his equal. But they dared not face Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ali sent Abbas without them knowing, with a face covering and a face mask. Abbas rode up to Ash'ath and effortlessly slew him. They cried out, "It is Ali deceiving you with a face mask. Do not approach him." There was great commotion in the Syrian army. As this was happening, Ali ibn Abi Talib rode from behind, came next to Abbas, and as he unmasked him, It was as if the brilliant moon was being revealed from behind the darkened clouds. He said, Ana Ali ibn Abi Talib, wa hada Abbas qamar Bani Hashim. This is Abbas, the radiant moon of Bani Hashim. Abbas is a standard bearer of Hussein's army. Ali ibn Abi Talib gives a khutbah that let your standard bearer be the bravest amongst you. For so long as that standard stands, the morale of the army is assured. As soon as the standard falls, the morale of your army has broken. Yazid sat upon his throne. As the war booty and the spoils of war were being brought in, he looked on and he stood from his chair, then he sat down. He looked at it again and stood from his seat and sat down. The third time he stood, he said, whose standard is that? It has no place intact apart from the place that held the hand. They said it is Abbas's standard, and he did not fall until his arm was cut. He said, Wallah ya Abbas laqad abayta al-la'an. O Abbas, by Allah, you refuse to give in. It is a right of a brother that his brother should defend him in the way you have defended your brother. Abbas's strength cannot be described. Zainab could not conceive how the enemies could loot her tent when she had somebody like Abbas. The children could not understand why they would be thirsty when they have an uncle like Abbas. The sheer strength of Abbas cannot be described, but his strength is far beyond what we are comprehending and what we are understanding. Look at Abbas's real strength. His real strength is in his resolve. By God, can you imagine how much pain a person would incur when an arm is cut? And then, if a person knows that that is the arm that defends Hussein and defends the tents of his sisters, that arm is cut, can you imagine the psychological trauma? Abbas's right arm is cut. Instead of saying, he says, Wallah law qata'tum yamini, inni abadan uhami an dini, wa an imami. By Allah, even if you were to cut my right arm, I shall never cease to defend my faith and my imam. His left arm was cut. He said, O soul, fear not. They have cut your left arm, O Lord, drive them to the pits of hell. But he does not cry out in anguish. Do you know what happened on the day of Ashura? Shimr would be at a distance. Every time he would ask, is Abbas alive? And so long as Abbas was alive, he did not smile. When he found great cries of joy and tribulation emanating from the Al-Qama, he said, what has happened? They said, Abbas has been killed. For the first time, a smile appears on the face of Shimr. And he said, now Hussein will not escape. As Hussein's back breaks, Shimr rejoices. The stature and the strength of Abbas. But the true strength of Abbas is in his control and resolve. Abbas unhinges the door of Marwan, Walid's office. Raging the lion is. Hussein places his hand upon the chest of Abbas. And the lion swallows his rage. Again, on the 7th, we find that Umar ibn Sa'ad is saying, unhinge your tents and move them from Al-Qama. Abbas said, will not, and never shall my brother's tents be moved. I shall wage a war against you instead. Hussein said, move the tents. Abbas refused. The Zakirin say, Abbas had a soft spot for his sister. Hussein said to Zainab, Zainab, tell your Abbas to do as they want. We find tears flowing upon Abbas's cheeks. He is sobbing as he unpitches the tents. Look at the great strength of Abbas in his great resolve and control. It is the morning of Ashura. Before daybreak, Hussein has dug a trench behind his tents and filled it with firewood and set it alight so that the enemies do not ambush from the back. Abbas is patrolling that area. Zuhair ibn Qayn comes to Abbas. He says, "O Abbas, do you know why your father asked you from Allah?" Abbas stopped. He said, this is no time for you to talk with me, O Zuhair. But since you have mentioned the name of my father, in reverence I pause to give you a listening ear. He said, Abbas, your father had begged for you for such a day. In rage, he places his feet within the stirrup and the horse comes to its knees. Zuhair, do you incite me? Watch what I will show you. A man calls out to Hussein, says, O Hussein, have you prepared the fire of hell for yourself before we put you into the pits of hell? Abbas went and subdued that man, killed 80 people, retrieved that man's spear and beheaded him with his own spear. He came back to Zuhair and said, Zuhair, don't incite me on this day. Such is the strength in that Abbas. Abbas is no ordinary person. Abbas is a grand person. By Allah, that Al-Qama, that he could not bring back to Hussein, today it kisses his feet and flows onwards. Go to the shrine of Abbas. Al-Qama surrounds him. He is not an ordinary person. We have this hadith that only a Masoom buries a Masoom. We find this riwayah that Sajjad comes to Karbala on the 13th of Muharram. The people of Asad are lost. He says, I will direct you. He asks for a mat. Upon the mat, he places the headless body of Al-Hussein. Places Hussein inside his grave. Places Asghar on the chest of Hussein. Places Akbar at the feet of Hussein. And he instructs them to bury the others. People come running to him. They say, oh man, there is a body at the banks of Al-Qama that refuses to move. As we lift it from its chest, its feet become pinned to the ground. As we lift the feet, its chest becomes pinned to the ground. He said, he will not come to me. I will have to walk to him. Sajjad walks to Abbas. When he sees Abbas, he falls to the ground and says, ah, oh uncle, by your leaving, the heavens have become illuminated and the earth has become a darkened place. Oh uncle, if only you had heard the pleas of your Zainab as she called to you when the whip struck her back. Abbas is a man that cannot be described. The sixth Imam says, إِنَّ الْعَمِّيَ الْعَبَّاسِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ لَمَنْزِلًا يَغْبِتْ بِهِ الْأَوَّلُونَ وَالْآخِرُونَ. For my uncle Abbas, on the day of Qiyamah, is such a rank with God that all creatures will look upon enviously. On the day of Qiyamah, people will see brilliant lights hovering the throne of God. And at the peak of them all shall be the most brilliant light. They will say, who are they? It will be said, these are the companions of Hussein. And it will be asked, who is at the head of all of them? It would be said to them, it is Abbas ibn Ali. Such is the rank of Abbas. Against the sixth Imam says, may Allah have utmost mercy on my uncle Abbas. He loved his brother and sacrificed himself and gave his 2 arms. In return, Allah has given him 2 wings with which he takes flight within the heavens with Ja'far Tayyar. Abbas is known as Babul Murad. I'll just narrate one incident because our time is gone. Just one incident. There was a sheikh who had become crippled through a stroke. He narrates his story. He says, I used to drag myself to the masjid. On the night of Abbas, I came and sat at the foot of the pulpit. And as the masayib was going on, I dozed off. As I dozed off, a man came to me upon a horse. He said, stand and do the matam of Abbas. I said, I can't stand. He said, but I'm telling you to stand. I said, then give me your hand. He said, I have no hand. Take hold of the reins of my horse. He said, as I took hold of the reins of his horse, I opened my eyes and I was standing. Abbas is Abbas. Everyone has gone. Hussein is alone. Abbas looks at Hussein and says, "Oh Hussein, I cannot withstand your loneliness. Allow me to fight your enemies." Hussein, tears filling his eyes, looks deep into the eyes of Abbas. إِذَا مَضَيْتَ يَا Abbas. If you go, O Abbas, فَرَقْتَ بَيْنَ عَسْكَرِي. You will break the morale of my soldiers. He said, "Oh Hussein, what army, what soldiers? It is only you and I." He said, "Benafsi anta ya Abbas. May my life be given for you, O Abbas." Abbas does not find resolve in the heart of Hussein. And soon there are cries arising from the tents. "Abbas, take news. Maybe a child has died due to the thirst." Abbas goes in. What does he find? Where the water skins are kept, little children are rubbing the water skins against their stomachs in order to find some relief from their thirst through the coolness of the skin. Abbas takes the water skin. "Oh children, I shall bring back some water for you." He comes out, says, "Oh brother, allow me to fetch some water for these thirsty, dying children." Hussein looks at Abbas and he knows he's not going to see his Abbas again. A brother is bidding farewell to another brother for the last time. And a brother like Abbas. Hussein looks into his eyes. Abbas kisses the forehead of Hussein, looks towards the sky and says, "Oh Allah, do not disappoint me. Allow me to come back to him." Abbas makes way. There is a guard upon the Al-Qama. Abbas removes them, enters within the Euphrates, cups water in his hand. The reason why he did that was because his steed would not drink until the steed saw Abbas drinking. So he cups water, but the steed does not drink. Abbas draws water near to his eyes. And he says, "Ya nafsu, min ba'd al-Husayn huni." O soul, you have no place in this world after Hussein. It does not befit you to live if Hussein does not live. Had al-Husayn warid al-manuni. This is Hussein surrounded by death. Shall you drink from the cold water? In a rage, he throws water away. And he says, "By Allah, ma hada fi'alu dini." By Allah, Abbas's religion does not allow him to do such a thing. He fills the water skin, comes out of the Al-Qama. The enemies know they cannot face this Abbas. There are trees around. Some of them hide behind the trees. As Abbas comes out of the Al-Qama, Hussein anxiously looks on. He looks at the standard of Abbas emerging from the Al-Qama. Abbas engages with his enemies. Somebody strikes him from the back and cuts his right arm. Abbas takes the water skin and the alam in his left arm. He carries on fighting. His left arm is struck. When Hussein sees the standard falling, he grabs hold of his waist and cries out, "Ala al'an inkasara dhahri wa qallat hilati." Now my back has broken. My means have been devastated and severed. He falls to the ground. Abbas holds the water skin in his mouth and directs his horse towards the tent. Amidst the arrows, the spears, the sword, Abbas gradually makes way until 2 arrows are released. One penetrates into his blessed eye and the other one within the water skin. As Abbas sees the water spilling, he stops his steed. They surround him, begin to attack him. An iron mace is struck upon his head. He lowers his head upon the mane of the horse. As he lowers his head, they begin to cut him. The horse bewilders, gallops in a direction until Abbas does not dismount, but his body falls off the back of the horse. Hussein makes way. "O Abbas, call on to me." There is no response. Zuljana stops. Have you found my brother, O Zuljana? Hussein descends from his steed. He says, O Zuljana, my brother does not lie here. And when he looks, he finds the severed arm of Abbas. He takes it and he says, Wa Abbasa, Wa Abbasa. Then he makes way and he finds his Abbas, the lion, about to give his life. On the dust, his body is torn. Hussein looks upon his lion, sits next to him, unable to speak, choking on his tears. He lifts the head of Abbas. Abbas moves his head away. He lifts it again. Abbas is saying something. Hussein draws near to Abbas. Abbas says, "Oh man, wait for a moment. Do not behead me. Allow my brother to come to me. It is I, your brother, O Abbas. I have come to you." He says, "Oh master, I did not see you." Hussein takes the head of Abbas, clasps it against his chest, and cries out aloud. The way he pleads and the way he cries, the enemy is looking at him, break into tears. He looks at them and he says, "Now you cry. When you have taken my Abbas from me, when you have broken my back." As Hussein cries out, he finds tears coming from Abbas's eyes. He says, "Oh Abbas, what brings grief to your heart?" He said, "Oh brother, how may I not grieve when I see you cleaning my face? And I know very soon you will be beheaded by the brutal thirst, and there will be nobody to carry your head from the dust." "Oh Abbas, is there anything I can do for you?" He said, "Oh Hussein, yes. I beseech you for the sake of Allah, do not carry my body back to the tents." "Why, O Abbas? If Zainab sees me in this state, her morale will break." "Oh Hussein, I made a promise to your little Sakina." "Oh Hussein, how should she see me in this state?" Abbas is dying. Hussein begins to lift Abbas. Abbas opens his eyes. "Oh Hussein, what is it that you do?" "Abbas, I must carry you back." "Hussein, leave me. Go." Abbas breathes his last. Hussein carries the alam of Abbas. With his head lowered, ascends Zuljana, comes towards the tent. We find this scene that Zainab sees the alam of Abbas. She is running towards the alam. Sakina precedes him with the children as they see the standard of Abbas. When they find Hussein, Sakina cries out, "Oh father, do you have any news of my uncle Abbas? He lies slain on the banks of the Euphrates, O child." Zainab said, "Oh brother, why did you not bring my Abbas back to me?" He said, "Oh Zainab, even on his final breath, he was thinking of you." She slapped her face and she said, "Wa dayata, wa qillata nasara, wa Abbasa." Matam Hussein.